say to you, stand up and take your stretcher and go to your home. Immediately he stood up before them, took what he had been lying on, and went to his home, glorifying God. Amazement seized all of them, and they glorified God and were filled with fear, saying, "We have seen incredible things today." May God add a blessing to this reading of his word.
Please remember. So I want to try something a little different this morning. I want to share some thoughts and have all of us do some reflection. So bear with me in a little stretch from the norm. This morning I will offer more of a personal reflection than a sermon. So in the past several months, very recently, I lost my mother and my brother and two of my dearest friends. Tomorrow morning, I am off to Cleveland to do the last of 4 memorial services in only about 8 weeks. So this is not really a sermon, but the result of many hours and days and weeks of thinking and remembering and holding in my mind and heart and spirit the values and resources of 4 very loved people. The thing I want to talk about is the importance of friendship. So the text this morning is one of my favorite Jesus stories, and I'm really focusing on the one part. In researching the text of the healing of the paralytic, one thing that stands out is the determination, resourcefulness, and creativity of a group of friends hoping to offer their friend Jesus healing powers. So they had to carry their friend on a cot up to a rooftop, dig a hole in the roof, and lower him down into the house. Now, this is a very ancient story, but let's think for a minute what kind of energy and action that takes. You would need some tools and strength and a good deal of balance. You don't want to drop your invalid into the hole in the roof. You need to ease them down into a room that is already crowded with folks attending to the teachings of Jesus. And then you don't want to have your friend feeling uncomfortable or susceptible to falling. I'm thinking that one of the best ways to imagine this situation is to put yourself on that cot and wonder, what would that feel like? I don't know. Seems both tricky and dangerous to me. My dad was in a wheelchair for most of his adult life. He had MS. Going up and down curbs in the days of the mid-20th century was very risky. Now the curbs are broken down. Never mind thinking of working your way up or down a flight of stairs. This was the lowering of a paralyzed person down from a rooftop. I have to close my eyes to think about it because heights are my frights. So here we are imagining a determined friendship of folks doing what needs to be done to make things work for a friend they love. This is where my reflection begins this morning. Thoughts and meandering memories on the theme of friendship. I think it is one of the most important and often forgotten relationships of our culture and community, sometimes even as people of faith. This morning, I would like to offer you some thoughts on the result of intentional friendship. So, in the 20th century, mid-20th century of media, of TV, there were many sitcoms that had a focus on friendship. I think you'll remember some of them. MASH, Laverne and Shirley, Taxi, Cheers, Seinfeld, Mary Tyler Moore, Frasier. But my favorites were Designing Women, Murphy Brown, and the British sitcom, The Vicar of Dibley. That show still has me screaming out loud in laughter at home by myself on my couch, tears streaming down my face, watching the antics of a parish led by one of the first women vicars in England. The show tested every kind of friend treatment you can imagine. And in the midst of everyday trials, celebrations, tribulations, consultations, work challenges, and sometimes horrible tragedies, these friends, church members, stayed together, and worked things out. I looked forward to Friends sitcoms over 2 generations of primetime TV. They were a bit more realistic for me than the several generations of family sitcoms that mostly dramatized relations that worked around challenges rather than facing them head on. And ha ha ha, only in 30 minutes. For me, friends are like dinner. That is the familiar circumstance upon which I can draw. In my family, dinner at the end of the day was a time for teaching, sharing, discussing issues of the day, and offering words of hope and healing while eating good homemade food. Dinner in my family was at a small table in our kitchen, safe from injustices, dangers, and resources and the noises of our very busy neighborhood on the south side of mean and violent Chicago. So I want to stop for a minute and have you think. Think just for a minute or so, and if you want to talk to a friend or someone near you, with whom you shared growing up and through your life, your trials and tribulations, and your celebrations, and joys and hopes. Share with a person next to you if you want to, but think about who your friends were, especially when you were young. And I'll stop you in just about a minute. Go.
I'll come to you.
Okay, just a couple more seconds. Okay. For years after leaving home, I worked at constructing a family gathering at a table at least once a week to offer the kind of friendship and care I found at my family dinners. I still do that. Each week I have a family with whom I play a board game and share the news of the week at Sunday dinner. In the last few months, with so much loss and sadness, the weekly gathering has been a time for sharing difficult losses. Growing up, friendship was characterized by the 40 or so children in the immediate neighborhood outside my back door. There were 3 families with between 8 and 12 children, and the rest of us with 1 or 2. We played stickball, hide and seek, Mother May I, rock teacher. We roller skated together and shared our skates. Everybody couldn't afford a whole pair. We jumped rope and for hours on end worked on mastering hopscotch and the hula hoop. In summer, it was our job to play outside all day long from 9 in the morning until we were called home for supper. This kind of friendship was the classic laboratory for working out differences, solving problems, creating new ways of seeing and doing things, finding ways and resources for making our games work. Sticks instead of bats, shared gloves for playing catch, taking turns, teaching the small ones with patience. We learned how to be safe. Our play area was an alley with cars and carts and delivery trucks. We were a gang of children working out our world and our communication and our relationships in a busy, real world of activity and constant movement. It wasn't always easy, but this kind of community friendship and care was our job as little children. I went to the same elementary school for 8 years. No middle school in my hometown of Chicago. All the schools were K through 8. My brother and I went to the St. Edmund's Parochial School for our elementary education. It was a small Episcopal school of only about 110 children total for the 9 years. I, however, attended kindergarten and a preschool and elementary school for 8 years at St. Edmunds. So 6 of us went from the preschool to elementary school together. It made first grade a new environment in a whole new place, much less intimidating. We entered a new school and a new space at 6 years old with friends. Over the 8 years, the other 5 moved away. But throughout grade school, all 8 years, there was Larry Page, Karen Mills, Annette Tompkins, Sandra Moore, and Alberta Kennedy. For most of the 8 years of elementary school, these 5 children served as daily friends, often more like siblings than classmates. We were forced to work out our questions, confusions, teasing, fussing, misunderstanding, living and learning together. Grade school antics continued all day, every day, as a basic foundation of education. In the middle of those years, Cortez W. Clay and Melissa Jane Pendleton came along to offer humor, fun, and best friend energies, making the concepts of friendship something to which I looked forward and expected. Now, I'm going to stop again. Think on the lessons you learned from your friends and classmates, for better or worse, in your early years of education. What lessons have formed your adult relationships and community life? And I'll stop you again in about 90 seconds. Okay? After the old neighborhood gang of 40 kids and the long-term friendship of grade school, I planned on managing the rest of my years of education and my working future surrounded by and supported by good friendships, even the ones that were challenging. I really worked at it. Making and keeping friends has been one of the most important tasks for my life, especially now as a single senior. The memories of these friends have come back to me as a result of my mother's recent death and her recent memorial service. The impact of those who showed up to remember and celebrate my mother's life made a deep impression on my spirit and my mourning and my faith in human relationships. Annette Tompkins from grade school showed up. I had not seen her for 62 years. She was the church secretary at my home church, and she loved my mother. Ronnie Gibson showed up. I had not seen him since I left home in 1968. Our families were neighbors in 2 different neighborhoods over more than 40 years, and our moms were running buddies. They were both active members of the same congregation. There was a little girl in a slideshow that I used to put together that included my family. She was in one photo, but I couldn't remember who this child was. But her sister was one of my mother's best friends. She came from far away, out of respect to my mother and for the long years of friendship in our family. The 2 adult children of the pastor of the congregation, which I grew up in, participated in the service. They came with their children, who also knew my mother. The list goes on. Folks came to Chicago from California, Indiana, Minnesota, Texas, Virginia to offer love and respect because of generations of deep friendship. 35 people watched the service online. I was deeply moved by the presence of so many people who defined what it means to be a friend. Now, enough about me. This morning, in a world that is fraught on the hour with bad news and difficult challenges, both personal and institutional, in times where we communicate on devices, we still have the opportunity, and in my mind, the responsibility to offer the saving grace of friendship as a part of the resolution for the biblical mandate to both love your neighbor as yourself and do justice, love kindness, and walk humbly with our God. The text this morning offered this singular solution by friends wishing to heal a paralytic, that of tearing the roof off. A kind of determined madness, I think. But these days, that roof is our need to house folks, feed and educate our children, protect our friends who are immigrants, care for the elderly and the sick, show up for the folks that we care about in times of both distress and celebration. I need to tell you that our taxes and intentions, that our politicians, lawyers, and judges, our thoughts and ideas are not going to have the impact that old-fashioned friendship represents as the antidote to hard times and bad news. Our presence offers the traditions of love, respect, good spirit, and the abilities to support one another in good times and in challenging circumstances. So in the end of my 4 months of 8 deaths and 4 memorials which I planned and in which I had to participate, my reflections and healing came with the active engagement and the deep and abiding love and presence of friends over my entire life. Just a perfect prescription for healing and merciful hope. So here is where all of the stories come from. Friends cannot be taken for granted. This is a kind of work that must be the result of commitment, communication, intentional care, as presence here and there and now and then. The world has changed so much in only one short generation. I had to cancel my landline. I hate that, carrying my phone in my pocket. But we no longer talk to folks on the telephone. We text and, send weird messages and email. Physical presence is even gone from some educational venues. Classes operate on Zoom. Classrooms are on a screen. And I'm not sure that folks sit down to regular meals together anymore. Friendship is a place in human life where we encounter other people to share common experiences, solve problems, experience loss as well as celebration, work out solutions for conflicts, and of course, for conflicts rather, and of course, just hanging out for fun. So still, friendship for me is like Sunday dinner. People with whom we make an intentional stop to rest, reflect, review, and renew. The outcomes of making time for friends: affirmation and confidence, needed support, honesty and advice, unconditional love, respect, and care. And really, in times of grief and loss and difficult changes, friendship brings healing and hope. When you have good friends, you have the people who remind you of what is possible and positive and life-affirming. Times like death, having babies, job hunts, moving. I just moved from New England after 37 years to Southern California with friends. Horrible, debilitating health diagnosis, among other things, can be held in healing, hopeful triage as you make decisions or pause for a plan or move forward for required changes. The plan for doing things well is working out a support system that you know and trust and with whom you can find comfort. For many of us, family fits most of those needs. I moved away from my family 58 years ago. My immediate family is now gone. My extended family are still 2,500 miles away, and never once ever have any of them come to visit. My friends take care of me every day of my life. every single day. In order to have friends, you have to be a friend. Work at it. Think about friendship. Design it. Cover your sorrows and joys with a team that will carry you through to the end. And if you need some more examples of people who have done that, look around you. I just listened. We are everywhere. Now, one more minute. Stop to make a pact with yourself to call, write, take out to lunch, or whatever you want to do. Walk in an arboretum with a friend this week. Be in touch with someone you've not seen in a while, or share a moment with a friend you love. Just think about that just for a few seconds and figure out how you might do that. So, here we are at the end. I know this long, fluffy meditation is meaningless for some of you. Some will say, well, I am so glad that I have my children and grandchildren. One of you might say, I have my siblings, or I live with my mother and father. I am suggesting that we choose friendship as well as the support of family. I never married, I have no children. And among my many friends that do have family, I am part of their families at holidays and celebrations. What a way to live in the world. Surrounded by people who give you care and love and hope. You gotta have friends. I grew up in the 50s and 60s. Radio was the thing. I remember my first little transistor radio in the 6th grade. You put it under your pillow at night to listen to Herb Kent, the cool gent. It was the basic form of home entertainment. It kept me calm and focused during the days of the Civil Rights Movement, the Vietnam War, and the affirmative activism that worked to allow people like me to have an entire career in ministry and the care of people in and out of the church. The music I listened to and remember shaped my values and the way I live in community. And so many musical themes are about friendship. I wish I could sing. I cannot. I do not want you to suffer. But please hear these words of blessing as we remember, consider, and hold our friends in our hearts. From the soundtrack of my life, James Taylor. You can play the game, you can act out the part, though you know it wasn't written for you. Tell me how you can stand there with your broken heart, ashamed of playing a fool. One thing can be to another, it doesn't take any sacrifice. Oh, father and mother, sister and brother, if it feels nice, don't think twice. Just shower the people you love with love. Show them the way that you feel. Things are gonna work out fine if you only will do as I say. Shower the people you love with love. Show them the way that you feel. Things are gonna be much better if you only will. And this from the residence hall windows across my college campus. If the sky above you should turn dark and full of clouds, and that old north wind should begin to blow, keep your head together and call my name out loud, and soon you'll hear me knocking at your door. Just call out my name, and you know wherever I am, I'll come running. Oh yes, I will, to see you again. Winter, spring, summer, or fall, all you have to do is call, and I'll be there. You've got a friend. And this from my dorm room in 1970. When you're weary, feeling small, when tears are in your eyes, I will dry them all. I'm on your side. When times get rough and friends just can't be found, like a bridge over troubled water, I will lay me down. Like a bridge over troubled water, I will lay me down. When you're down and out, when you're on the street, when evening falls so hard, I will comfort you. I will take your part. When darkness comes and pain is all around, like a bridge over troubled water, I will lay me down. My friends, be blessed as you offer love and blessings and care to your friends. Amen.